The night was as silent and dark as always. The road stretched before me like a black ribbon, empty and uninviting. I walked alone, with nothing but the sound of my own footsteps and the occasional rustle of leaves disturbed by the wind. The quiet was heavy, almost oppressive. After a while, I saw headlights in the distance. A truck. It was big, white, and moving slowly, almost leisurely, but there was something about it that made me uneasy. I couldn't quite place it, but it felt as though the truck and I were sharing the same space, yet not the same world. I started matching its pace, walking alongside it, but I couldn't quite make out the trailer behind it. The headlights were so bright that everything around us seemed to fade into a fog. I squinted, trying to make out the details, but it was difficult to see anything clearly. As the truck continued forward, the air around it began to feel suffocating, like the atmosphere itself had thickened. The truck seemed to pull the air in, drawing everything around it closer and tighter, until the silence became almost unbearable. My eyes were heavy, the exhaustion from my long journey taking its toll. The world around me felt oddly distant, as though time had slowed. There was no sound, no rustling leaves, no wind, no hum of a distant car, just an all-encompassing silence. For a brief moment, I thought I might have been the only person left in the world. Nothing was moving. Nothing existed beyond that road. But then, the vibration came. It was faint at first, barely noticeable, but then it intensified. The truck had suddenly accelerated, its speed picking up as if it were rushing somewhere. I quickened my pace, hoping to put some distance between me and it. But just as I passed the trailer, I heard something from the back. At first, it sounded like something was swaying, or maybe just the usual noise of a truck driving over the rough road. But then, it came again, louder this time. A scream. A deep, soul-shattering scream, full of pain and terror that echoed through the stillness of the night. It came from the trailer, cutting through the silence like a blade. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. I tried to shake it off, thinking maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me, but the scream came again. This time, I couldn't deny it. It was real, and it was coming from that truck. A woman's cry, agonized, desperate, as if she were being torn apart. I felt the weight of her pain as though it was my own. My heart hammered in my chest, my legs frozen to the ground. I couldn't move. I had to look back. But when I turned, the truck was speeding away, growing smaller and smaller in the distance. The sound of that scream lingered, echoing in my mind. The truck's headlights were disappearing into the darkness, and I had to know what was happening. Why wasn't the driver stopping? How could he not hear the screams? The road was silent again, but the screams still reverberated in my ears. What had I heard? What was happening in that trailer? I couldn't understand. Every instinct told me to run, to get away from that truck, but my feet felt heavy, unwilling to move. The air was thick with dread. The next day, I drove back along the same road, trying to shake off the memory of the night before. I told myself it had been a figment of my imagination, just a trick of the mind. But when I passed the spot where the truck had disappeared, I saw something, a sign by the side of the road. It was old, the paint faded, but the message was clear. A truck accident occurred on this road several years ago. A person disappeared in the trailer, and no one has seen that truck since. I felt my stomach drop. The blood drained from my face as I read the words again. The truck, the missing person, the screams. My mind raced. Could it be the same truck I had seen last night? Had I really heard someone screaming in that trailer? My hands tightened around the steering wheel as I tried to calm my racing thoughts, but I couldn't. The sign went on, detailing the accident. On the day of the crash, the driver lost control of the steering wheel. The passenger in the trailer disappeared, and the driver died at the scene. Since then, the truck has never been seen again. But many say that the missing person still roams this road, their cries of agony heard by those who pass. I read those words over and over, trying to process what they meant. The missing person, the spirit haunting the road, was that what I had heard? The scream I couldn't escape, the one that had dug its way into my memory. Was that the cry of the person who had vanished in that accident? Was their pain still alive, echoing through the night? A cold shiver ran down my spine, and just as I began to turn away, I heard it. The truck, its headlights cutting through the fog, slowly rolling up behind me. It was the same truck. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. I glanced in my rearview mirror. The truck was getting closer, but when I looked back ahead, I saw it. The truck, right in front of me. I slammed on the brakes, but the truck kept moving forward, its lights blinding me. The driver's seat was empty. There was no one behind the wheel. But the truck kept moving, its trailer swaying in the wind. The screams, they were back. Louder this time, more frantic. The sound was coming from the trailer, the same desperate cries that had filled my ears the night before. I could feel the presence of something, or someone, in that truck, and it wasn't human. The trailer was moving, but no one was driving. I glanced to the side, searching for an escape, but there was nowhere to go. The truck was everywhere. The screams echoed, reverberating through my bones, and I couldn't stop them. I couldn't stop it. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the truck was gone. The road was empty again. My breath came in short, sharp gasps as I tried to calm myself, my hands shaking on the wheel. I had to keep moving. I had to get away from that road, from whatever haunted it. But the fear stayed with me, the image of the empty truck and the soul-shattering screams lingering in my mind. As I drove on, the wind howled outside, and every shadow seemed to hide something watching me. Was I being followed? Was I the next one to disappear on that road? I couldn't be sure. The screams still echoed in my ears, and I couldn't escape them. Every corner I turned, I felt like I was being pulled deeper into something I couldn't understand. That truck, that spirit, it wasn't done with me yet. I had to keep driving, but no matter how far I went, I couldn't shake the feeling that the road I was on would never let me go. The spirit of the missing person was still out there, still waiting. And if that truck appeared again, I wasn't sure I'd be able to outrun it this time. It was one of those nights where the road felt endless, the darkness stretching far beyond the horizon. The kind of night where the world feels silent, and the only sound you hear is the hum of your car's engine and the occasional turn of the steering wheel. It's easy to get lost in the stillness, to feel like you're the only one left in the world. But tonight, there was something different, a sensation that I couldn't quite shake, like I was being watched. I was on a long stretch of road, the kind where you only see the occasional flicker of a distant light. The silence was so thick that even the smallest sound seemed amplified. It was just me, the road, and the dark expanse around me. But then, in the distance, I saw a light. At first, I thought it was just another car, another traveler on the same lonely road, but it came closer quickly, too quickly. The light grew bigger, brighter, until I realized it wasn't a car at all. It was a truck, a massive truck, so large that I couldn't even make out its shape from the headlights alone. The truck didn't seem to make any noise, just the slow thrum of its massive engine echoing in the night. I wasn't sure why, but something about the truck unsettled me. It wasn't just its size, though that was enough to be intimidating. It was the way it seemed to appear out of nowhere and then began to follow me. I didn't think much of it at first, maybe just another truck passing by. But then I noticed something strange. No matter how fast I drove, the truck stayed behind me, always at the same distance. It wasn't speeding up or slowing down, it was matching my every move. Every time I turned the wheel, I could feel it there, close but never too close. At first, I thought it was just coincidence. Maybe the driver was taking the same turns as me, or maybe we were just going at the same speed. But the more I thought about it, the more uneasy I became. The truck wasn't just following me, it was staying behind me, as if it had some kind of intention. I sped up, trying to put some distance between us, but it stayed right there, a looming presence in my rearview mirror. The truck's headlights never wavered, never blinked. It was as if it was locked in place, its gaze fixed on me. I started to panic, my heart racing. Why wasn't it passing me? Why wasn't it speeding up? Every time I turned, the truck turned with me. Every time I sped up, it did too. It felt like something wasn't right, like there was something on that truck that wasn't supposed to be there. Then came the intersection. I slowed down to make the turn, hoping to shake the truck. But just as I did, it did the same. It didn't miss a beat. It stayed right behind me as I made the turn, almost as if it was predicting my movements. Panicked now, I floored the gas pedal, trying to outrun it. For a moment, I felt like I was pulling ahead, like I had finally escaped its grasp. But then, just as quickly as it had been there, the truck was gone. 1 second, I was speeding away from it, and the next, there was nothing behind me. Just empty road, no truck, no headlights, just silence again. I was left with a growing sense of dread that I couldn't shake, a feeling that something was very wrong. The next day, I drove down that same stretch of road, my mind still racing with questions. Was I imagining things? Had I really seen that truck following me, or had it just been my nerves? But as I drove, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A sign by the side of the road caught my eye. It was old, the letters faded, but the message was clear. A terrible accident occurred near this intersection last year. A truck, moving fast, disappeared just like this. After the accident, it was claimed that the truck driver and the people inside vanished. My heart stopped. I had to pull over, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Could it be? Was the truck I had seen the same one that had disappeared that night? My thoughts spun as I tried to make sense of it. Could it be that the truck was somehow carrying the spirits of the people who had died in that accident? Or was it just a coincidence? Either way, the thought chilled me to the bone. I drove on, but everything felt different now. The road seemed darker, emptier, like the spirits of the lost might still be wandering there. I passed the intersection where I had made that panicked turn, and I saw another sign. This one read, "The spirit of the truck driver who died here still haunts this road." The weight of the words hit me like a ton of bricks. Was the truck I saw really a manifestation of that spirit, following me down the road like some kind of lost soul? Was it trying to tell me something, or was it simply lost itself, doomed to follow the road forever? I could feel the fear tightening in my chest, and I knew then that I could never go down that road again. That truck, whatever it was not something I wanted to encounter again. But of course, that night, I found myself driving down that road again. The same road, the same stretch of darkness, I moved slowly this time, more cautiously, my hands gripping the steering wheel. And then, just as I had feared, the lights appeared again, slowly growing brighter in my rearview mirror. It was the truck, but this time, it wasn't trying to catch up. It was just there, following me. The lights moved, but they never approached. It was like the truck was just observing me, waiting. I looked behind me again. The lights were gone, but I could still feel it there, following me, even though I couldn't see it anymore. I had no idea if the truck was really there, or if I was just losing my mind, but it didn't matter. I knew deep down that I couldn't keep driving down that road. The truck, the spirit, whatever it was, it had followed me before, and it would follow me again. There was no escaping it. Was that truck a trace of the lost, a ghost of the past, destined to drive the same path over and over again? Or was it something else entirely, something worse? I can't say for sure. But what I do know is that I don't want to take that road again. No matter how much time passes, no matter how much I try to forget, I know one thing for certain. The truck will always be there, waiting, following, and I'm not sure I can outrun it. It was night, and as I drove down the highway, the lights started to fade. I was driving alone, and the surroundings had turned dark, with an overwhelming silence. There was nothing but the headlights of my car illuminating the path ahead, and all I could hear was the low hum of the engine and the sound of the tires on the road. As I moved slowly, I noticed a truck parked on the side of the road. At first, it seemed like a normal sight, but the truck's driver cabin lights were on. How strange, considering it was the middle of the night. For a moment, my attention drifted, and as my eyes scanned the inside of the truck, a figure suddenly appeared in the cabin's window. At first, I couldn't make out what it was. A woman, perhaps a trucker's companion, I thought, but her movements were strangely slow and odd. She waved her hand toward me. As I continued driving slowly, I noticed her waving hand. Why was it so prominent? And why was there no sound? I briefly looked away, my attention now fully on the truck. In that moment, the woman's face disappeared. In confusion, I increased my speed and drove faster. I didn't want to think about the truck anymore. A few minutes later, I felt something was wrong. There was a strange unease in the air as I continued down the road. Something inside me felt off, like there was something missing. I didn't look back, but I saw a light shining through my rearview mirror. That light was so familiar. The truck was right behind me, but just a few minutes ago, I had been far from the truck on the side of the road. Now, it seemed like that truck had suddenly started following me. I looked ahead, and I saw her again. She was standing in front of the window, and her face was smiling. But this time, the smile was terrifying. Something was wrong, and there was something different about her face. The woman's smile was not one a normal person could make. Her teeth were pure white, but they were sharp and strange. Her eyes seemed to be staring from the depths of a spirit's hollow gaze. My heart began to race, and I felt a horrible pain in my stomach. What should I do? How was it that the truck, which had been parked just moments ago, was now in front of me? Her face was so eerily clear that all I could see were those eyes and that smile. I sped up, but I didn't take my eyes off the window where she was looking. The more I noticed her gaze, the more I felt like I was being pulled into it. I was so disturbed that all I could think about was getting out of my car and leaving this eerie truck behind. But whenever I turned round, the truck was always there, a little closer. The woman was still looking at me through the window. Her smile had grown wider, and her face was starting to distort in a strange way. That's when I realized something was terribly wrong. I couldn't figure out what the woman was or the dark secret behind the truck, but right now, that smile and those eyes, they were suffocating me. Suddenly, I had to stop my car at full speed. No matter how careful I was, the journey wasn't enough to escape from this terrifying figure that was following me. I parked the car and quickly jumped out, feeling like something strange was following me even as I stepped out. I slammed the car door shut, but nothing seemed enough. The woman's smile echoed in my mind. Shaking with fear, I turned back. No matter what, I needed to get away from that truck. But when I looked behind me, the truck had suddenly vanished. Without a trace, that frightening figure was gone too. I didn't know where the truck went, but the woman's face wouldn't leave my mind. Not long after that day, I saw the truck on the road again. But did I see the woman's face again? I didn't turn back to check. Everything I had seen had turned into a nightmare that was following me. Whenever I drove down a dark road, I thought of that truck. Looking out the car windows, everything seemed even more terrifying. That truck and that woman were like ghosts chasing me. What was that woman doing to me? What was happening? That woman's dark face, that horrifying smile, and her eyes never left me. Since that day, I've never taken that road again, but somehow, that terrifying entity always seemed to be watching me.